In the last episode of our series on the early history of the Ottoman Empire, we covered how the Ottomans, under the leadership of Osman and Orhan, expanded the territories and political institutions of the new state, and how both men took advantage of their declining neighbours to expand the apparatus of the Beylik. In this episode, we will explore the Ottomans' sudden and deep expansion into the Balkans during the aftermath of the latest Byzantine civil war, and how Europe responded to these swift land acquisitions by a rising Muslim power. Want to expand into Europe yourself, or maybe just take all of it? It's one of many ways to play in today's sponsor, Call of War. It's a free PvP strategy game in which your own World War II plays out in real time over the course of weeks, and you're tasked with managing your economy, technology, diplomacy, and of course, warfare. Make real allies and enemies with up to 100 other players, use loads of World War II units and secret weapons, and compose a grand strategy to conquer the world. It's a great game to dip in and out of since it happens over a long period, and you can adjust your empire anytime on PC or mobile. Get the game for free via our link in the description, and you'll get an exclusive gift, 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free, but only for the next 30 days, so get in there now. By 1357, the Ottoman Beylik, under the military leadership of Orhan Gazi's son, Suleiman Pasha, had managed to create a bridgehead into Europe, with the territorial acquisition of the Gallipoli Peninsula. As Thrace was opened to Ottoman raiders and Ottoman families continued settling in the newly captured regions in Europe, the presumptive heir of the Beylik would also begin the peaceful annexation of Anatolian towns like Ankara and Bolu with the help of the local Ahis religious order, the same order that Osman had allied during the days with the Kayi tribe. However, the same year would also see the 12-year-old Shehzada Halil, Orhan's son, through his marriage to the Byzantine royal Theodora Cantacuzeni, being captured by Genoese pirates during a raid on Ottoman territory. Pleading for the return of his son, the elderly and desperate Orhan went so far as to request the help of the newly established Byzantine emperor John V Palaiologos in the following negotiations with the pirates. In an act of classic Byzantine diplomacy, the emperor agreed to help the Ottoman leader retrieve back his son from the Genoese in return for declaring the half-Byzantine prince as heir to the Ottoman Beylik, paying half of the ransom requested by the pirates, revoking the Ottoman alliance with the Palaiologos-rivaled Kantakozenos family, cancelling all of Constantinople's debts to Bursa accumulated during the latest civil war, and lastly the cessation of all Ottoman raids into Byzantine territories. Orhan would reluctantly agree to John's terms, and all Ottoman conquests in Thrace were put on hold, while the Byzantines negotiated with the Genoese. After 2 years of negotiations, Halil would be released and be first transported back to Constantinople, where the Ottoman Byzantine prince would wed the emperor's 10-year-old daughter before being shipped off to Ottoman territory. The whole crisis would highlight John V's answer to Ottoman aggression by planting the seeds for a Byzantine royal to inherit Ottoman territories and even potentially transforming the Beylik into a fellow Christian ally. John V's plans for the Ottoman Empire would move further forward when Orhan's eldest son and assumed heir, Suleiman Pasha, unexpectedly died during a hunting expedition in 1359. Going into grief for his son and heir, the now physically ill Orhan Gazi would appoint his 33-year-old son, Shehzada Murad, to oversee the Ottoman armies stationed in Thrace, before secluding himself within the walls of the Ottoman palace in Bursa. However, like his brother before him, Murad would also ignore the established agreements between Constantinople and Bursa, and began planning for a future military campaign to seize the major Byzantine city of Adrianople. After 3 years of being inactive, Ottoman armies in Thrace would begin military operations in the region in a two-pronged invasion. The upcoming military campaign would be led by 3 Ottoman commanders, all appointed by Murad personally: Lala Shahin Pasha, Hachi Ilbey, and Gazi Evrenos Bey, the latter 2 being former Karasid commanders. The Ottoman prince would first assign Evrenos Bey and his forces alongside the Thracian Aegean Sea coast to prevent Christian reinforcements from entering the region from the west, while he himself would take the bulk of the Ottoman army into Byzantine territory up north. During the beginning of 1360, the Ottoman military campaign would begin, which would see Murad swiftly capturing the towns of Lüleburgaz, Babayski and Kirklareli, reaching the Black Sea coast, thus territorially cutting off Constantinople from the rest of Europe. That following year, Evrenos Bey would capture the militarily strategic fortress town of Didymataiko after a short siege, while Murad was finalizing his preparations for the march towards Adrianople. As panic arose in Constantinople, caused by the sudden Ottoman invasion, John V would form a new joint Byzantine-Bulgarian force in the west to counterattack the Ottomans in Thrace. However, the coalition force would be dispersed by Murad during the subsequent Battle of Pinahisar and be pushed back behind the walls of Adrianople. Consolidating all of his forces in the region, Murad would begin his much-awaited siege on Adrianople during the summer of 1361, and before long, the local Byzantine governor of the city would flee the city, thus resulting in the local garrison surrendering to Ottoman forces. Soon after the fall of Adrianople in the spring of 1362, the secluded 80-year-old Orhan Gazi would die from natural causes. His final words to his son Murad were, "Son, I've reached the end of my road while you are just starting out on yours. May God the Almighty bless your reign." Orhan Gazi would be buried in the Ottoman capital city of Bursa, the city that he had conquered 36 years ago. Being renowned as the greatest and wealthiest of the Turkoman rulers of Anatolia by the famous 14th century Muslim scholar and traveller Ibn Battuta, Orhan Gazi's greatest legacy would be transforming the Ottoman Beylik into a military power on par with the Byzantine Empire, and for expanding the state into Europe. Receiving the news of the death of his father while in Thrace, Murad would start his journey back to the capital city of Bursa to secure the Ottoman throne. Upon arriving in the city, the young Shahzada would be proclaimed as Sultan by the statesmen and the religious ulema of the capital. Meanwhile, in Anatolia, the news of Orhan's death had brought a period of uncertainty in the region, as the Ottoman garrison at Ankara was expelled by the local officials of the city, and the sons of the former Ottoman ruler, Shahzada Ibrahim and Halil, revolted against Murad's swift seizure of the Ottoman throne. Hearing of the troubling developments from his Anatolian province, in a quick and successful military campaign during the same year, Murad would re-establish Ottoman rule in Ankara and defeat and execute his two half-brothers, marking the event as the first Ottoman fratricide in history. After stabilizing his Anatolian holdings, Murad made plans for another military campaign, this time directed at Europe. As local Ottoman forces in Europe regrouped at the town of Didymataiko, another two-pronged attack into Thrace was being planned by the new Ottoman leader. Gazi Evrenos Bey would take his contingent of the Ottoman army and head west, hugging the Aegean Sea, while Lala Shahin Pasha would take his forces up north towards the Rhodope mountain range and descend into the Maritsa valley. The Ottoman military offensive started out strong, with Evrenos Bey capturing the city of Komotini and Lala Shahin Pasha capturing Stara Zagora before going on to besiege Plovdiv, one of the largest cities within the Bulgarian Empire. After a long siege, in 1364, the city would fall to the forces of Lala Shahin Pasha, and would thus serve as a major military base for the Ottomans in the region. As cities in Thrace collapsed like dominoes, Murad would further order another mass migration of Ottoman families from Anatolia to resettle in the newly conquered lands in Europe. After the Black Death, many cities in the Balkans were heavily depopulated. This made it easier for the Ottomans, who were only lightly scarred by the pandemic, to conquer and settle in the Balkans throughout the course of the decade. With the death of Shahzada Halil and the Ottoman conquest of Thrace, an official peace treaty was signed between the Ottomans and a now rump Byzantine Empire in 1364, which would result in John V recognizing Murad's conquests in the region and promising to refrain from forming an anti-Ottoman coalition with other European powers. Although there is a lack of European sources on the matter, according to traditional Ottoman chronicles, during the same year the peace treaty was signed, a European crusade was launched by rulers of Hungary, Serbia, Bosnia and Wallachia against Murad. Marching on Adrianople, which was by then slowly being transformed into a new Ottoman capital city, The goal of the crusade was to thwart further Muslim expansion into the Balkans and to possibly even push the Ottomans back across the Dardanelles into Anatolia. However, in a series of shrouded events, the Crusader army would be repulsed by the Ottoman forces of Hagi Bey near the walls of Adrianople during the Battle of Srp Sunder, or Serbian Destruction, which would see a 10,000-strong Ottoman force defeating a far larger European host. The decisive Ottoman victory would help ensure a permanent Ottoman presence in the Balkans for another decade, and would also mark the first time the Ottomans would fight against an invading Crusader army in their history. As Ottoman victories against European powers mounted, another crusade was launched against Murad in 1366, this time under the leadership of the Count of Savoy, Amadeus IV. In a short military campaign between 1366 and 1367, Savoyard forces proved far more successful compared to their Balkan counterparts, having recaptured the Gallipoli Peninsula for the Byzantines before proceeding to raid the Bulgarian Black Sea coastline. With the Byzantine Emperor openly working with the Crusaders and travelling to Hungary and Rome for military support against the Ottomans, Murad would renew his war with both Constantinople and the Bulgarians. During the year 1368, the Bulgarian towns of Yambol, Burgas, Samakov and Sliven were quickly captured by Ottoman forces, and Byzantine lands were once again thoroughly raided. Seeing that European assistance was not forthcoming, John V would send his son, Manuel, to Adrianople, now renamed Edirne, to plead with Murad and re-establish peace, which the desperate Byzantine emperor was thankfully granted. With peace once again re-established, Murad I could now focus on domestic issues, such as integrating his newly conquered territories into the Sultanate. Like with prior Muslim states, the Ottoman Sultanate followed a traditional policy of tolerance towards the peoples of the book, ergo Christians and Jews, who had the right to protection of their lives, properties and religions as long as they accepted Muslim rule and paid the special head tax called the jizya in lieu of performing military service. Although mass conversion was prohibited due to the Ottoman desire to retain the jizya as a major source of income, some sections of the Balkan nobility would convert to Islam during the reign of Murad I to gain the full benefits of Ottoman rule. Perhaps the most major domestic development to come out during the reign of Murad I would be the introduction of the Janissary military corps into the Ottoman military. After the conquests of the last decade, the Ottoman state and its Ghazi soldiers had acquired considerable plunder, including the acquisition of many Christian male prisoners of war. During the reign of Murad, the Ottoman state instituted a tax of 1/5 on all slaves taken in war, and it was from this pool of manpower that Murad first constructed the elite Janissary military corps. With the help of his Grand Vizier, Kandali Halil Pasha the Elder, the Sultan's first household troops were formed, thus creating the first standing elite military corps in Ottoman history. In the next few decades, the Devshirme, also known as the blood tax, would be fully institutionalized within the Ottoman state, which would see the recruitment and training of young Christian peasant boys into various roles within the Central Ottoman administration and military. By the time of Murad's conquests in the Balkans, the two other major powers of the region, the empires of Bulgaria and Serbia, were in the slow process of decentralization and economic stagnation. During the first half of the 14th century, both states had taken advantage of the rapid loss of Byzantine power in the Balkans by annexing large swaths of Byzantine lands in the region. While the Byzantine world was crumbling, Serbia, under Emperor Stefan Uroš IV, would reach its territorial, political, economic and cultural peak, thereby ushering in a mini-Serbian Golden Age. It was during this period the Serbian emperor would openly contest and undermine Byzantine authority in the region by proclaiming himself as the Emperor of the Serbs and Greeks, thereby declaring himself to be the true inheritor of the Roman legacy, in addition to propping up the Serbian Patriarchal Church as the head of Eastern Orthodoxy. However, in 1355, the benevolent and ambitious ruler of Serbia would suddenly die, leaving his newly constructed empire to his son Stefan Uroš V. Lacking the political and martial skills of his father, and often being indecisive in his ruling, Uroš V would be unable to keep the Serbian nobility under his control for most of his reign. By 1365, the most powerful of the Serbian nobles, Vukašin Munjevčević, had considerable influence over Uroš and was even given the lesser title of King of Serbia and effectively ruled over the weak emperor. Meanwhile, Bulgaria, under Tsar Ivan Alexander, would also go through a period of decentralization, which would see the empire being split into 3 separate entities, all ruled by semi-autonomous Bulgarian princes. In the wake of uniting the realm under his rule and seeking to get revenge for the Battle of Srpsindre, King Vukašin Munjevčević, at the head of a 50,000-strong force, alongside much of the Serbian nobility, would invade the Ottoman Beylik during the late summer of 1371. Stationed in Edirne and hearing the news of an incoming Crusader invasion from the Balkans, Lala Shahin Pasha would send out letters to Murad, who was in Bursa with most of the Ottoman army, to send military reinforcements to Thrace at once, while Gazi Evrenos Bey was gathering the remaining Ottoman forces in Thrace to put up minor resistance against the Crusaders. As the Crusader army reached near the outskirts of the Ottoman capital, the military decision to halt and encamp near the river Maritza was taken by the Serbian nobility. According to Ottoman chronicles, the Crusader army had begun to feast at night, leaving their encampment unprotected. The Serbian nobility did not believe a major Ottoman army was in the region, since most of the Ottoman army had been recalled to Anatolia months before by Murad. With the element of surprise on his side, Gazi Evrenos Bey and his 800-strong scouting retinue would ambush the Crusader camp in the middle of the night, alongside Lala Shahin Pasha's garrison forces from Edirne. Thousands of Serbians were killed in their tents, and many drowned in the nearby Maritza as a large-scale panic engulfed the Serbian camp, caused by Evrenos' sudden night raid. Serbian King Vukašin Munjevčević and the bulk of the Serbian nobility would too be slaughtered in the pursuing mayhem, which would see the destruction of the Crusader army. Only by the time the sun was up the following morning, it became evident to Ottoman leaders that they had won a major victory. According to Balkan chronicles, the Maritza was polluted with thousands of bodies, and the river ran scarlet with the blood of those killed during the battle for weeks. The Ottoman victory during the Battle of Maritza, also known as the Battle of Chernomen, would firmly secure Ottoman presence in the Balkans. The battle would also mark the beginning of the end of the Serbian Empire, as the childless Stefan Uroš V would die during the following winter, leaving what remained of the Serbian nobility to establish their own despotates in the former imperial lands of the emperor. Hearing the news of the crusade against him and the victory at the Maritza, Murad I and the bulk of the Ottoman army would swiftly travel back into Thrace, where the Ottoman Sultan would once again make plans to swiftly travel back to his European holdings and conduct another major military campaign in the Balkans after the collapse of the Serbian Empire. During the year 1372, Ottoman armies would begin the campaign by marching into Serbian-held Macedonia alongside the Aegean coast, conquering the cities of Xanthi, Kavala, Drama, Ceres, Kyustendil and Veria. In addition to the conquests of many towns in Macedonia, the Serbian breakaway domains of Prilep and Velbajд both submitted and became vassals of Murad as Ottoman armies approached their gates. With the Ottoman victory at the Battle of Maritza and Muslim armies now freely marching around the Balkans, the Bulgarian and Byzantine empires both made strides to reach a rapprochement with Murad to keep their realms intact. In 1373, John V Palaiologos became a tributary to Edirne in return for retaining the few Balkan holdings he still ruled, like the major coastal city of Thessalonica. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Tsar Ivan Shishman of Bulgaria would also negotiate with Murad to become a tributary to Edirne, in addition to also giving the hand of his sister, Kere Tamara, to the Ottoman Sultan. Within only 2 years after his victory at the Maritza, Sultan Murad I, grandson to a lowly nomadic warlord who migrated to Anatolia, had become the overlord of both the Byzantine and Bulgarian empires, in addition to large swaths of the former Serbian Empire. In our next episode on the early history of the Ottoman Empire, we will explore further into the reign of Murad I and his future military campaigns in the Balkans, in addition to looking at the beginnings of the Ottoman expansion into the region of Anatolia. Thanks to Call of War for sponsoring this video, an online strategy game playing out in real time on PC or mobile. Click our link in the description to get an exclusive gift, 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free, but only for the next 30 days. We'll talk more about Ottoman history in future videos, so make sure you have subscribed and press the bell button to see the next video in the series. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps us immensely. Our videos would be impossible to produce without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links down in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.